It's the value of the next best alternative thing that you could have otherwise done if you did not decide, for example, eat the free meal. So that's economics. That is why when we make choices, when we make decisions, we should be mindful na this is the best thing that I'm doing. Could I have done something else better? That is one glimpse at how an economist thinks.
Hey! This is Kuya Jay, and welcome to the latest episode of Pera and Purpose Podcast, a show about money and meaning. My aim is for you to use money as a tool to live a meaningful life. Yon! So, before we start this episode, isa muna ulit tayong gratitude post or gratitude shoutout sa ating mga closest friends and followers ng ating podcast. And dito si Mr. Terence Berkeley, who is based in Qatar. Ayan, maraming salamat, brother. I know you might not be expecting this shoutout ngayon, pero I wanna tell everyone that I appreciate all the things that you're doing, lalo na sa pag-support ng mga ginagawa ko sa community and yung mga content that I'm also putting out. And gusto ko lang sabihin na I appreciate you na ikaw yung lagi nauuna sa mga session na ginagawa ko para sa Ayala Land Investors. Ikaw yung lagi nauuna sa mga training sessions natin, kaya saludo ko sa'yo and may you be blessed with more knowledge and wisdom sa lahat ng ginagawa mo right now, brother. Again, maraming salamat. Okay? So yan, guys, nanonosebleed ba kayo? Or nanonosebleed ka ba na pag-usapan ang topic ng economics? Well, ako, oo. It's one of the subjects na I almost failed in college. But as I grew older and delved deeper in the field of personal finance, I realized that economics is just more than the numbers. Hindi lang siya number, okay? Understanding how the economists think can help us make smarter decisions in our personal and professional life. And this is why I have invited an economist and one of my fellow Yaman coaches who teaches economics sa Ateneo Graduate School of Business, who has a Master of Science in Finance sa University of the Philippines, an MBA, and Master of Arts major in Economics sa Ateneo de Manila University, who is also a registered financial planner, a columnist, and a former overseas Filipino who led the Philippines and Southeast Asia business of UAE Exchange, which is a leading global financial services company in the UAE. Yon. So, to open our eyes in the world of economics and teach us how to think like an economist, let us all welcome Coach Gemmy Lontoc. Woohoo! Bro, Coach.
So, hi Kuya Jay and hi everyone. It's my honor to be invited and to be present.
Yes, here. And ako rin, I'm really happy na ikaw na-grab na kita or na-grab ko na opportunity na makausap kita kasi it's been for how many months na bago kita na-invite. Sabi ko napaka-busy ni Coach Gemmy, pero I understand kasi nga you have the different roles and several responsibilities that you're doing right now. And I'm really thankful na kasama na kita ngayon sa ating podcast. Dahil ito talagang episode na to, Coach, nung naisip ko tong topic natin about economy or thinking like an economist, ikaw lang talaga nasa top of mind ko. So again, maraming salamat.
Thank you as well, Kuya Jay.
Yan. So, before we begin, gusto ko malaman, Coach, no, ano bang sikreto sa masarap na pandesal ng Dimasalang?
Yung bakery sa Pasig, yung Panaderia Dimasalang, ay siguro isa sa mga pinakamatatandang negosyo. Hindi lang sa Maynila, hindi lang sa Luzon, pero siguro sa buong Pilipinas kasi ito ay 102 years old.
Wow!
So, siguro ang nagpapasarap sa pandesal ay ginagamit na oven ay yung tinatawag na pugon.
Wow,
oven na
classic.
Hindi natin masyado nakikita na sa iba-ibang mga bakery. So, siguro, yun yung not so secret kung bakit yung pandesal ng Panaderia Dimasalang ay binablikan. In fact, nung mga nakaraang taon, nung nagkaroon ng parang survey at study, ano daw yung mga top pandesal, I think yung magazine na conducted was yung Food Magazine, if I remember correct.
Yeah.
They voted the pandesal ng Panaderia Dimasalang as the top pandesal at that time.
Wow.
A couple of years ago. So, yun, sana ma-maintain.
Matibay, ano? Hindi ko pa natitikman yung pandesal dyan, but definitely.
Kailangan mo pumunta ng Pasig kasi ang pandesal ay best na pinakain kapag galing sa pugon.
Aha.
Tapos diretso sa yan,
Direct
kain.
talaga? Wow, nice. So guys, baka nagulat kayo, ba't yun yung una kong tanong no, anong relationship nun sa ano kinalaman nun sa topic namin. Pero Coach Jemmy is also part of that team, yung sa Dimasalang, yung Panaderia Dimasalang, ayan. Kaya sabi ko, daming ano ni Coach na responsibility like what I said kanina. And in addition to being part of the academe ng Ateneo, he's also part of the management team ng Panaderia Dimasalang. Ayan, so Coach, ito na talaga. Ano ba ang
Thank you.
dahilan?
Meron pang special mention bago tayo mag-start.
Oo, syempre.
Okay.
Icebreaker lang. Okay. So ito,
Okay.
Coach, ito na tayo yung ito yung una kong question is why? Why do you think na dapat tayo or as if we want to improve our finances, why should we think like an economist? Yan. Yan agad.
Economics is ubiquitous.
Mhm.
Ibig sabihin, hindi man natin siguro napapansin, merong economics sa ating mga personal lives.
Mm.
Merong economics na nakikita natin sa kung paano pinapatakbo ang ating bansa.
Mhm.
And bakit tayo dapat mag-isip bilang economist? Well, siguro ito'y relevant lalo-lalo na sa mga panahon tulad nito
Mhm.
na may mga hindi natin hawak lahat ng ating mga resources.
Yes.
You know, ang economics, if I may proceed, yung definition has evolved over time. At the
Mm.
early part of history, when you said economics, it was basically wealth. Maybe
Okay.
because people who lived before us were heavy on material things.
Mhm.
But that evolved into economics being more of welfare.
Mm.
So it's not about how much you own, but if you're doing well or not. But the most popular and the widely used description of economics is basically it's determining your optimal choice,
Okay.
balancing what you need and what you want,
Mhm.
given what you have.
Okay, medyo na nosebleed
So
ako
it's
dun
determining optimal choice.
Aha.
Meron kang gusto,
Okay.
meron kang mga pangarap, so pwede mong habulin yon, pwede mong kunin sa buhay yon. Pero dapat hindi mo makalimutan na nasa realidad ka. Meron
Okay.
kang limited and finite resources. Kasi kung unlimited lahat,
Mm.
kung unlimited ang lupa, ang pera, siguro walang economics. Kaya nagkaroon ng
Mm.
economics dahil sa realization na meron tayong tinatawag na scarcity ng mga
Okay.
resources. At dahil dyan, we have to make the right choices. We have to make the optimal choices. So, at the end of the day, it's balancing our
Mhm.
unlimited needs and wants. I want to have so much in life with what exactly do you have in terms of your
Mm.
resources like money, like your available assets, and then you come up with a choice.
I
That, in a
see.
nutshell, is economics. It's
Econo
positive.
mm.
It's
Mhm.
positive in nature.
Mhm, mhm.
Kasi, Kuya Jay, ikaw tatanungin ko,
Sige.
do you agree that we live in an imperfect world?
Yes, oo.
And do you also agree that even if we live in an imperfect world, that you can still be happy?
True, oo. It's what it's how you make the most out of this everything, 'di ba?
That to me is my personal interpretation of what economics is all about. We go out
Hmm.
and we realize that we don't have everything that we want. We are
Mhm,
limited by our salaries, we're limited
mhm.
by our assets, but it doesn't stop us from being happy.
Yeah.
We make our choices to make sure that whatever we buy, whatever lifestyle we pursue, whatever goals we have
Mhm.
are matched with whatever resources that we have. And in that sense, by making the optimal choice, nalalaman natin na posible pa rin maging masaya kahit hindi perfectong buhay. So that to me is my personal interpretation. It's very positive in nature. Na ganyan talaga eh. We're in the real world eh.
Mhm.
Pero you can still be happy. How? By making the right choice.
Wow, I never expected na ganito pala yung magiging conversation natin about the topic na about this topic. Dahil parang to me nga before, I thought na when you talk about economy or yung trabaho ng economists, it's always about the numbers. And ito, habang ini-explain mo siya, no, na ito pala is more on being happy with our limited resources and maximizing the things that we have right now. Like, parang a couple of episodes ago, I was talking to a person with a PhD, kay Doc Romel, na PhD sa psychology, and doon niya we talked about yung optimism naman. And sinabi niya nga doon na if you want to be an optimist, kailangan meron touch of reality. Na hindi ka lang nakafocus doon sa maganda sa positive side, but also you have to do something dito sa present. And pag pinagsama ko pala yung mindset ng pagiging optimist and being an economist, then that's the time na I'll be able to achieve balance. Kasi like what you said, no, there's this positive outlook in life, pero you have to accept the fact na your resources are finite, pero you can be happy even with that finite resources. It's how you're gonna utilize those resources, as I understand. Even if there's a scarcity, you can still live a happy life. Yon. So, wow.
I'll give you a practical example of how economics is applied in daily life.
Yes.
Budgeting.
Ano yung, coach?
You have a finite salary.
Ayan, yes.
You have a finite salary. And then, of course, we are all human beings.
Mm-hmm.
We have needs, we have wants.
Yes.
Therefore, you can pursue your needs, your wants, and your savings and investments. But you have to realize that there's a certain cap, and that is your salary.
Salary, yes.
So from the salary, what's the word in economics? You now allocate X amount to my future, saving and investing. X amount to my essentials, my needs. And whatever's left, my wants or my luxuries. So what economics is saying is that, yes, you can still pursue happiness, but in a responsible and logical manner. Work with your budget, allocate according to what you think are important, at sana ganito, future needs and then wants. And then at the end of the day, hopefully you'll be happy. Kasi lahat nagagawa mo. So everything should be within that. So that's an example of how economics is applied in day-to-day life. And here's another practical application. You know, economics, this is a social science. Confluence of many other social sciences, particularly like what you mentioned earlier, psychology.
Yeah.
We study behavior of consumers, businesses, governments, economies. And then it's a social science, studies society and man. But at the same time, it has a lot of math and stat. Because as much as possible, when you sort of like propose something in economics, you need to have data, you need to have evidence, so that you're making sure that what you're saying is not a motherhood statement, that it is an informed recommendation.
Yes.
So economics is heavy on facts, data, in proposing solutions and recommendations. Economics is also a lot about solving problems. Whether the problem is a macroeconomic problem or a microeconomic problem, and then coming up more importantly with solutions. So it's a very practical type of subject.
Are you confused about your finances? I know you want to change for the better, pero di mo alam kung saan ka magsisimula, anong dapat mong gawin, and sinong dapat mong lapitan. Yan din ang naging problema ko nung nag-decide akong ayusin ang finances ko. At dahil hindi ko alam ang mga sagot sa tanong na yan, I got scammed, I bought unnecessary expensive financial products, and lost money for not knowing how to invest properly. So, if you are an overseas Filipino or someone who wants to improve your financial situation, I want you to visit my website, that's jadriantolentino.com, to get free resources on how you can start your journey towards financial independence. Again, that's jadriantolentino.com. So, paano? Kita-kits! Dami niya pala
I have
na.
a question, Kuya Jay.
Sige, coach. Ayan,
for
sige.
you.
Kinakabahan ako.
In the thick of our economics
Sige,
Parang baliktad. Kasi alam ko, di ba, ako naman ang magtatanong.
sige lang.
Kuya Jay, I have a question. You
Ano
go
yun?
to, for example, let's imagine that you are in your office cafeteria.
Okay.
Okay. And then there is a promotion during
Hmm.
this particular lunchtime.
Okay.
The promotion is free meal.
Mhm.
Free meal. So you're in the cafeteria, you see the sign, free meal, and then you get the free meal.
Oo.
KJ, I have a question. You did not pay anything, but can you say that there was absolutely no cost of you deciding to get the free meal and eat it? Was it
Ah.
totally devoid of any cost because you got the entire meal for free? Question. Wala nga
Hmm.
bang cost ang libreng pagkain sa cafeteria?
Sorry. Sige coach, titignan ko Medyo nag-advance reading ako So,
Sige,
sabi sabi ko
no
sa
problem.
economy parang dito mo sasabi na there's no free lunch. So, I would say na,
Exactly.
'di ba, gano'n. May kapalit, there's a trade-off and maganda sinabi mo kanina na there's itong scarcity na tulad ng sinasabi mo, 'pag may ginawa ko isang bagay, may isang bagay akong hindi gagawin or 'pag may binili
Okay,
ako
so
isang bagay, may isa akong
Kuya
hindi
Jay, ano yung hindi
yes.
mo nagawa nung ikaw ay nag-avail ng libreng pagkain?
Oo, most definitely baka hindi ko nagawang makausap yung office mate ko or nagkaroon ako ng time magbasa kasi usually pagka lunch nagbabasa ako or natutulog ako, nagkakaroon ako ng time, itinutulog ko siya. Nung nagwo-work ako sa call center pagka lunch, talagang tinutulog ko siya and binibilisan ko lang yung pagkain. Pero 'pag may free lunch, most likely baka nga pumila ako and then ite-trade off ko yung pagtulog ko for that, free lunch. Yun.
So
Tama ba?
that's an
Tama ba ako?
important statement. There is no such thing as a free lunch in economics.
Hmm.
Interpretation, we live in a world of trade-offs. So even if
Yes.
you ate the meal for free, meron kang pinagpalit.
Yes,
Ano yung
yes.
pinagpalit? In the case of Kuya J, it was sleep time. And that's
Mm.
important to him. But let me just qualify that not everything is what we can call a trade-off or an
Hmm.
opportunity cost.
Mhm.
Pag walang value yung isang activity na pwede mo sanang ginawa, then you can consider that an opportunity cost. So it has to have some sort of value. It's the value of the next best alternative thing that you could have otherwise done if you did not decide to, for example, eat the free meal. So that's economics. That is why when we make choices, when we make decisions, we should be
Mhm.
mindful na this is the best thing that I'm doing. Could I have done
Hmm.
something else better? That is one glimpse at how an economist thinks. Making
Tal
sure
Mhm.
that this particular decision, even if I compare it with probably other alternative things or actions, seems to be the best. And that's why I decided to take it. No free
Grabe.
lunch in economics. Welcome to the world of trade-offs. Welcome to the world of opportunity cost. You know, our Director General of the NEDA,
Aha,
Dr. Carl Kendrick Chua, has
okey.
this line whenever he's asked. So he goes this line, there's no such thing as free manna from heaven.
Hmm.
Meaning, in light of COVID-19, if we are to support all of those health and economic programs,
Mhm.
those would entail cost.
Yes, yes.
So that would mean funding. We will not just get the money from thin air. It would either be in the form of what? Access, borrowing, or
Yeah,
selling government assets. But the
exactly.
point is that walang libre. The more you want to support the economy,
Mhm.
in terms of those costs, the more we have to be prepared.
Grabe, napaisip ako dun and yan yung isa sa foundation ng, parang if you wanna think like an economist 'no, yung opportunity cost like
Yes.
what you're saying 'no, coach. And, nung naisip ko yan, okey para pala na rin akong in some way, may pagka-economist na rin pala ako mag-isip kasi right now yung oras ko talaga naka-calendar and I make sure na yung yung oras na yun tinatanong ko sa sarili ko, "Is this the thing that I wanna do at this particular time talaga?" Kasi nga baka nga mamaya I'm doing something na mas important. Pero ito siguro coach 'no, i-level up ko yung situation na yun, no? Granting na lagi ko nang ina-assess ngayon yan. Paano ko kaya, ano kayo masabi mo or ano yung mas-share mo or ano yung mabibigay mong tip sa akin para malaman ko as an economist na this is the best thing to do right now at this time, or ako lang talaga makasagot nun, or meron kang pwedeng may bigay na tip as an economist? How do you analyze that
There
situation?
are different key performance indicators.
Mhm.
One indicator can be all about growth. So if you're
Okay.
able to increase your enterprise value,
Mhm.
increase your sales,
Mhm.
increase your GDP, for example, increase your business, increase your profit, and
Mhm.
that's one.
Okay.
That's one. That's one
Yes.
measure of success.
Okay.
Another measure of success is this. We had a former president, President Fidel V. Ramos. Every time he was asked, "Sir, what is the gross domestic product?" You know what he would say? The gross domestic product is like the bibingka.
Mm.
So we all know what the bibingka is.
Yes.
So one basic goal or one basic role of any economy is to expand the bibingka so that goods and services will be able to keep up with our growing population. And we are what?
Mhm.
100 million plus
Yeah.
Filipinos. So that's one way. There's another way to measure whether we're making the right decisions. It's okay, we've expanded the bibingka, but does the average Filipino or Filipina really benefit? And
Mhm.
that's what you call now equity. What's the purpose of a big bibingka kung yung isang tao, karamihan ng slices ng bibingka sa kanya napupunta? So
Mhm.
that is another role, equity.
Equity, okay.
Nakakakain ba? Nakakakuha ba ng enough? Nagti-trickle down ba ang effect
Mhm.
ng higher growth, ng bigger bibingka sa mga kababayan natin?
Okay.
And then, at the micro level, yeah, it can be as simple as attaining the highest possible level of satisfaction
Mhm.
given your available budget. Diyan na
Mm.
papasok yung mga mathematical and statistical tools. Points of tangency will determine yung highest combination of goods and services that can give me my highest satisfaction given yung available budget ko na let's say 500 pesos.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
yeah, may mga tools that are
Okay.
discussed in economics.
I see. So kung ako i-ma-maximize ko yung time ko, isipin ko una is, will this lead to growth? Number one. And then yung sa equity part, paano ko i-question, is this something na within my, is it something na magbe-benefit yung maraming tao? Tama ba yung ano? Kasi ako more on parang, I wanna make sure na I'm using my time to not just na yung ginagawa ko right now will benefit so many people. Like kasi right now itong podcast natin is all about personal finance and giving value sa mas maraming tao because of this conversation. Then lastly is it's about satisfaction, right? And parang doon ako nahirapan. Paano ko ngayon i-quantify yung part na yun? So sige, iano ko na lang siya later
Yung
on. No?
satisfaction is something that's subjective. It's
Subjective kasi
relative.
siya. Yes, oo, subjective siya. So might as well
There
na
are
do the thing.
tools.
Hmm,
There are tools in economics that try to capture that
to
even if
capture
it's,
that.
let's say, subjective.
Oh, okay. So siguro ako na lang, I
AJ,
would
ako,
hmm,
meron
sige
akong
coach.
tatanungin.
Ay naku, ano
Sorry,
naman.
ang dami kong mga tanong because we're
Sige.
trying to see here how to think as an economist. So I hope that,
Aha.
we've been able to see at least the basics of how an economist thinks.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Now let's give I'm gonna give another real life application question.
Sige coach.
Let's say you're the mayor of Pasig
Mhm.
and then you were given a budget of let's say 500,000 that you
Mhm.
can only give to one individual.
Hmm.
Here's the question. One morning, two people approach you in your mayor's office.
Okay.
First person is a 60-year-old poor woman who will need the 500,000 to extend her life on earth.
Okay.
Second visitor is a young poor child who will need the 500,000 for her education.
Mhm.
PJ, try to put on your management hat or your economics hat. Where will the 500,000 go? Will it go to the old lady, old poor lady, for her health, or will it go to the young poor child for her education?
Teka lang, parang ang hirap ng tanong na yun, coach. Wait lang. Siguro I would give it dun sa old lady kasi para humaba yung buhay niya, and I think yung old lady na yun can still help other people, and then yung young child naman, baka may ibang magbigay sa kanya ng scholarship or grant. Ewan ko tama ba yung ginagawa ko or what. And I think yun, oo, ganun gagawin ko siguro if I were in that situation.
I've asked that question many times,
Uh-huh.
and there are I've heard this that economics can be sort of like a cold subject and a cold science, because
Yeah.
if you really want to think like an economist in that particular situation, in many cases, the choice would be to give it to the
Younger?
young poor child. Why?
Oh.
Because of the possible economic contribution that the young poor child will potentially still give to society as compared to the other visitor. So
Hmm.
economics is about, okay, this would be the benefits given the costs.
I
It would
see.
also always try to compare, will the benefits outweigh the
Wait,
costs, not just for the now, but also for tomorrow.
I
That's why
see.
in many cases, the answer would have been, if you were really strict as an economist, in many cases, it would have gone to the young child. But at
To the
least
student.
we hear your perspective.
Yes,
Because
yes.
come to think of it, if you're
Uh,
too technical and you think really as an economist, too hardcore
uh-huh,
as an economist,
uh-huh,
then what will happen to the marginalized sectors of our economy?
uh-huh.
What will happen to our older people who have given enough for
Mm,
our country? Who will take care of them? Government?
yeah.
Other private corporations?
Mhm,
So, and you know what? And another thing that suddenly reminds me of
mhm.
how economics is really that relevant is, you can just imagine the daily dilemma of our president, our cabinet,
Yeah.
his cabinet, and the lawmakers and the mayors. They have finite resources. They have a budget.
Mhm.
Obviously, they want to make as many people happy.
Yeah.
But even if they work 24, 48 hours a day, it's simply not possible, because everybody would say, I'm important.
Mhm.
Therefore, how do they now allocate the scarce budget that they have?
Mm.
Where will the money go? Do you give it to areas that are giving you the GDP, like the services sector?
Mhm.
Or do you put in more in agriculture, which is considered to be the weak link of our economy? Do you
Grabe ang
give
hirap
it
nun.
to Metro Manila, that is
Mhm.
driving our economy, as well as to the other urban cities? Or do you start increasing the allocation of the regions that are left behind, particularly those that are in Mindanao? Allocating scarce things like the national budget into what should be the things that we should spend on in
Mhm.
terms of priorities is another glaring example of, how they think as economists, or how economics is applied. So economics, whether looking at it from personal finance budget decisions to national macroeconomic budget decisions, it's the same principle. Limited resource, how do you now allocate it best? The best way you
About
can.
oo nga, maximizing everything na meron ka. Yun I think yun sigurong pinaka-core understanding ko or core learning ko this as our conversation is progressing, papaano ko ma-maximize yung resources na meron ako right now. Now I understand, 'pag binibigyan ako ng budget sa, let's say sa saya lang ako na I'm given a budget and I have to maximize this particular budget para ma-reach ang sales target, and even I have to do a budget for marketing, budget for a lot of things actually. And I really have to check on that again. Kasi buti na lang nagkaroon tayo ng conversation, yun pala yun. I have to crunch the numbers pa. Definitely. Kasi ako, ang ano ko talaga in dealing with personal finance, coach, is mainly it's all about behavior eh. Pero now that we're talking about thinking like an economist, then I have to also consider yung numbers game. Kumbaga, I have to strike the balance. Hindi pwedeng all about psychology or behavior lang or what.
And in
So,
making the right decision,
mhm.
you have to treat it as both a science and an art.
Yeah.
Science will be all about competence. That would be your knowledge of numbers, models, theories, frameworks, and so on and so forth.
Ayun.
If you take economics, you would have those. So you hopefully are able to apply them.
Aha.
But you don't stop at competence. You don't stop
Mm.
at knowing the theories, the numbers. You have to have the other C. What's the other C? Character.
I see.
It has to
Exactly.
be, even if you're talking, the modern day economist
Mhm.
tries to balance both competence, knowing the theories, applications, with character. Having a
Competence.
moral compass, having a sense of what is right and what is wrong. So that ultimately what is best, not just for himself or herself, but maybe hopefully for the bigger population would be chosen. But
I
it's
see.
tough.
It
You can
is.
just imagine our leaders, they have to make that daily economics, they have to face that daily economics dilemma. Given what I have,
Mhm.
who do I support? And everybody says they're important. Should bulk of the budget go to education, health, agriculture,
Yeah.
national defense? It's hard being a leader. So hopefully knowledge of economics can help them to a certain extent make the right decisions.
Yun, grabe. So, ito yung kanina na-mention mo coach 'no, yung sa opportunity cost. And I think there
Mm.
are other concepts sa economic thinking
Yes.
na involved dito, right? Ano pa ba I think may nabasa ako about sunk cost fallacy which is very common. And, can you explain to me or to us, ano ba talaga yung sunk cost fallacy and how do we deal with that?
Some costs in the context of business are costs that you may have incurred in the past,
Aha.
but when you are comparing future benefits against your relevant operating costs,
Mhm.
they seem to be irrelevant in the discussion.
Ah.
Because many businesses, the way they, for example, they want to invest. Although, Coach Jay, what I'm going to talk about is a combination of economics and finance. In many
Mhm.
cases, for example, you want to study a particular investment, whether it's viable or not. One tool
Mhm.
that's done is what you call a net present value approach,
Aha, yeah.
wherein you forecast cash flows
Mhm.
and then discount them to the present value, and then you compare with whatever cost or hurdle. And then if it's still a positive figure, then you proceed with the investment. If not, then you don't. An example of a cost, for
Hmm.
example, would be interest rate.
Yeah.
Is it worth borrowing and then investing? So you compare cash flows with the interest rate. So when you do that analysis, net present value, you do not include costs that have been incurred way back that are not recurring,
Mhm.
and therefore they are not relevant in the analysis. So you only incorporate analysis for costs that are um, ongoing.
Okay.
So some costs are things that happened in the past
In
that
the
really
past.
don't have any bearing whether it's
Hmm.
successful or not.
Parang may ganito ring bias sa ano 'no, sa human behavior sa psychology. Like parang, I think ito yung kapag bumili ka dun ng ticket tapos hindi mo na-enjoy yung ticket, you feel na sayang yung ticket kaya you tend to watch the entire movie kahit ayaw mo siyang ng panoorin kasi nanghihinayang ka dun sa binili mo. And let's say sa investment naman, nag-invest ka sa isang bagay tapos nakikita mo na nalulugi na siya and since napansin mo na, "Ang dami ko na na-invest, eh, ang dami ko na-invest dito sa certain asset class na 'to." Nakakapanghinayang i-pull out. So, ang tendency mo is you buy more thinking na you're buying more shares or you're in hopes na mabawi yung return na yun kasi sayang ang dami mo na na-invest. So, like what you said, no, yung mga nangyari in the past, let's say yung losses na yon, X na siya. Kumbaga, hindi na siya ganun ka-relevant if you run yung test or yung numbers na like what you mentioned, coach, right? Okay.
Then what you mentioned earlier in terms of the risk, yes, they can be risk loving, risk averse, or risk neutral. So choices of investments also will differ depending on the risk profile. You know what? I
Wow.
remember
Uh-huh.
one of the things that I uh, also discussed, you'd be surprised. I also teach a subject called Intermediate Microeconomic Theory, and there's a dedicated chapter on risk.
Mhm.
And you know what? When I talk to the young people, college students, a lot of them actually are not really that. aware about the significance of having a risk mitigation plan in the form of insurance.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever I discuss that concept, also based on textbooks, if, for example, your family was used to, let's say, a lifestyle of, let's say, 30,000 per month or 20,000 per month,
Mm-hmm.
and you're totally dependent on a breadwinner,
Mm-hmm.
what if something happens to that breadwinner? Then your lifestyle that you've been used to suddenly gets drastically affected. So that's the value of one value of insurance.
Mm-hmm.
It helps smoothen
Yun
the
loss.
flows.
Yeah.
It helps smoothen the flows of income and then consumption.
Agree. And
So things
kailangan
like
talaga.
that are also part of economics.
Oo nga, risk management and yun nga, mitigating risk like what you have mentioned.
Yes.
Part talaga siya, no? And insurance is really something that we also discussed din dahil hindi naman natin kayang i-predict yung yung pwedeng mangyari sa, let's say, illness or yung time of death. We can only probably predict yung kung kailan makakapag-retire or makaka-ahon sa utang. Pero yung mga cases na yan, yung anything that's covered by risk, hindi na siya part ng, hindi siya something na kayang i-predict. Kaya we can only manage risks. Yon. So coach, ano ba mga ano pa yung mga meron pa mga economic foundation ng economic thinking na we can discuss, or yung dalawa yon? So more on sunk cost fallacy and si opportunity cost, or meron pa mga basic na we can also teach our audience right now?
At the heart of economics is this particular concept. Kuya Jay, can we do another simulation exercise? Is it
Ay,
okay?
naku. Sige. Ako yung student mo, ikaw yung professor ko right now.
Okay.
I'm doing a crash course on economics. Sige, coach.
Okay. Imagine I am a seller
Aha.
and I'm selling, what is your favorite fruit?
Favorite fruit? Ano ba? Wait lang. Sige, mangga na lang, mangga. Kunyari.
Okay,
Mango.
mango.
Oo.
So I sell mangoes
Aha.
and then you buy mangoes. I
Okay.
am the seller, you're the buyer.
Okay.
On my part, when I sell the mango, there are two things that I have in mind. Number one, what is my cost?
Mm-hmm.
Number two, what is going to be my selling price? And my goal, therefore, is profit. I will
Yes.
make sure that my price will be greater than the cost
Mm.
so that I make money.
Yes.
Now let's go to you as the buyer of the mango. You also have two things in mind, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, Jay, can you say that one factor will be what will be the actual selling price of the mango when you make your
Okay.
buying decision?
Yes.
Okay,
Market price, yeah, yung market price niya.
market price. Second, will you also have your concept of, we call it in economics, reservation price? Ibig sabihin, pag lumagpas dun yung presyo ng mango, hindi na ako bibili nun. Kasi sobrang mahal na siya based dun sa
Okay.
nakikita kong value ng mangga.
Yes.
So meron ka rin ganun, Kuya Jay,
Parang
concept
parang
na rin?
target price ko, right? Kumbaga, gagastos ako sa 1 kilong mangga. Sa ganito, ito
Hmm.
yung alam kong fair value. And then,
Oo.
siguro, meron akong allowance na hanggang dito lang, kunyari. Kunyari hanggang,
Kumbaga, meron ka bang ceiling? Meron ka
oh,
bang
may siya ko,
maximum na?
kunyari, alam ko, 20 lang to eh. Pero, kung mapansin ko na medyo taas sa 20 tong nandito sa palengke na to, meron akong ceiling price, like 25 lang, ganun.
Okay. So having said that, if
Mm-hmm.
my objective as a seller is profit,
Aha.
parang ibang-iba naman ang objective mo. Masasabi ba natin, Kuya Jay, na ang objective mo, yung bibilin mo na presyo ng mangga will be as low as possible as compared to your maximum price?
Oo.
At in
Oo.
economics is what we call consumer surplus. Kasi ang feeling mo, kunyari
Mm.
sinabi mo, ang maximum ko na bibilin sa mangga, 100. I
Okay.
got it at only 70.
Mhm, mhm.
30 pesos consumer surplus. Feeling mo, panalo ka nun?
Oo, kasi nakatipid ako, right? Kasi mas
Nakatipid
mababa.
ka, laki.
Oo, 30.
So, the seller has his or her own objectives. Profit.
Hmm.
You as a buyer, you have a totally different objective. tingin mo Kuya Jay, pag nagkita tayo, seller of the mango, buyer of the mango, hindi mo magkakaroon tayo ng chance na magkaroon ng transaction?
Yes, oo. Basta na-meet ko yung target price ko at least.
Sige, subukan natin. Hi QJ, welcome to our mango store.
Hello.
Oh,
Wow.
by the way, we're currently selling our mangoes at 80 pesos. So sinabi ko 80. Kuya Jay, the ball is in your court. I'm selling it at 80 pesos. The ball is in your court.
Mababa siya dun sa target price ko na 100, no? Oo. Ano ba, same example ko, coach, no? Yung kanina or yung sa sinend
I'm
mo?
selling you 80. Oh, Kuya Jay, okay ba tayo sa
Sige.
80?
Oo, pwede na kasi 100 naman yung
Huwag ka munang
in-expect ko na.
pumayag. Huwag ka munang pumayag.
Ayoko. Sige. Bawasan mo pa.
O yan, I said 80. So, anong sa'yo? Anong tingin mo sa price ko na 80?
Siguro pwede na ako ng 70, ganyan.
Okay. 80. Seller 80. Buyer 70. Okay, DJ. 75.
75? 72.50.
Okay, 72.50. Okay, Kuya J. 73.
Sige, 73. Pwede na yan.
When the buyer and the seller, I call it, do the economic plans.
Mhm.
They have different economic goals, but when they get to discuss, they will arrive at that magic point of 73 pesos for the mango. Which means, as the seller, at 73, alam ko it's greater than my cost. Ang cost ko probably 65. Panalo ko. I got my profit.
Mhm.
In your case, question, you agreed at 73. What was the maximum price for the mango that you were willing to pay, AJ?
Yun nga, yung nasa 80, ganyan, or anything higher
So,
than that.
80 minus 73, you also won because you
Oo nga,
generated
7 pa rin.
consumer surplus of 7 pesos.
Yeah.
Therefore, when we make the handshake, naniniwala ka ba, Kuya Jay, that people are rational? That you will make a decision that will make you achieve your goal or be happy?
Yeah, well, ang tao, I would say na hindi madalas rational eh. More on emotional. So feeling ko nakatipid ako. Feeling ko I got a
Okay.
great deal
So,
out of
feeling mo
that.
panalo ka.
Oo,
Ako,
feeling ko
feeling ko
panalo.
panalo ko. May profit ako.
Oo.
Ikaw, feeling
Oh,
mo panalo ka rin kasi
may natipid
nakatipid
ako.
ka.
Oo.
So at 73, both of us are happy. At 73, the seller matches the buyer, supply matches demand, and that is what we call in economics equilibrium.
Equilibrium. Okay.
At dyan nade-determine kung gaano karaming goods and services ang available at magkano ang presyo. Kapag nag-usap na ang mga sellers at buyers, they will ultimately come to a point where they will agree and
Point
end
of
up
equilibrium.
happy because both of them achieve their respective goals. So that's the story behind the supply and demand curve.
Pala yun. Ganun pala siya. Hindi lang siya basta hindi lang siya pag mataas yung supply, mababa yung demand, means na
Meron mga
bababa
ganung
yung
dynamics yan, but at the very basic, when the
Okay.
two meet at the center, your middle part of the X, that's equilibrium.
That's
That
equilibrium.
is now one explanation of how prices are determined, how quantities are determined. It's all about suppliers meeting the buyers.
Nice. Ganun
So
pala siya.
that's a foundation of economics.
Grabe. Dami ko. Hindi ko in-expect na magkakaroon ako ng crash course sa economics ngayon. So coach, sige. Ito, pabilisin natin konti yung usapan. No? So, ano pa ba yung maganda yung naging analogy story natin about law of supply and demand.
Sorry,
Ano?
dami natin simulation kasi I'm trying to
galing.
break it down and tell you na economics is something that we're already doing.
Oo nga eh. Na-realize ko nga. Ginagawa ko pala siya on a daily basis, no? Yung pag-negotiate, part pala yun.
Yes.
Kasi ako
Salary
lagi,
negotiation is like an example of an application of economics.
yeah, oo nga, no? Oh, guys, ayun, magandang tip din yun, no? Apply kayo sa isang work, alam ninyo din yun, maggawa kayo ng homework, magkano ba yung, um, yung presyo o yung magkano yung bigayan sa market ngayon bago ka pumunta sa isang interview. And then, make sure na alam mo rin kung magkano yung pinaka-lowest and the highest price na pwede mong ibigay until you guys, yung HR manager, kung sino man nag-offer sa'yo ng offer na yun, is until magkaroon kayo ng equilibrium dun sa deal
Equilibrium.
na yun. Yeah.
Because at
Ah,
that particular wage, both of
mm,
you would win. In
will
your
win and
case, you
become
will only accept something that's above what you
mhm.
think as your floor.
Uh-huh.
Meanwhile, the employer will be okay because the employer also has a maximum.
Mhm, mhm.
So both of you win at the
Both of you
equilibrium.
win. Yes, exactly. Eto coach, ano pa ba yung mga basic terms ng economics na kailangang alam ng every average individual? So na-mention na natin yung law of supply and demand, and then yung opportunity cost, sunk cost fallacy. Ano pa ba yung mga other terms? Na-mention mo kanina yung GDP, ano? And
GDP, Gross Domestic Product.
yeah.
May pagkakaiba, Kuya Jay, ang GDP sa GNP.
Oh my God, ano naman
Nababasa
yung isa?
natin sa newspaper. Ang
Okay.
GNP, ganito na lang, kasi simple na lang natin.
Sige coach.
Ang GNP, gawa ng Pilipino.
Okay.
Ang GDP, gawa dito sa Pilipinas.
Pilipinas. Okay.
So if you're a Filipino company and you produce beer in Vietnam, that beer in Vietnam is not GDP, that's GNP.
GNP.
And if you have a multinational producing anything here, like in Santa Rosa, Laguna, a car,
The car, oo
soft
nga.
drinks, and dahil nandito sa Pilipinas, that's part of GDP. When we talk about the economy, the one that's more popularly used is GDP.
GDP,
Because
yes.
it really gives you a sense of how the economic activity or economic health is in a particular country.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the final value of goods and services in a particular economy. So that's just the distinction between the two, GDP and GNP. Another measure that we should be cognizant of is inflation,
Yes.
which is basically comparing price levels in a period versus another period. And then another measure that we should be aware of when we see it in the newspaper would be unemployment.
Okay.
No job means no income, means no spending, and that means that
So,
your economy is not going to be supported.
and low productivity as well, right?
Yes. What
Mm.
else? Interest rates.
Yan, oo nga.
Whether you are an investor, lender, a borrower, a saver, all interest rates would be relevant. So you also have to be aware of the trends with respect to interest rates.
Yeah. Lower interest meaning banks are allowing people to lend or borrow more, right?
Borrow
And then,
more.
oo.
Yes.
So, kapag naman mataas ang interest, they're trying to control para hindi tumaas yung inflation. Tama ba ang ano ko? Tama ba yung mga
Correct.
ano? Tama
Correct.
ako. Yun.
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
Kasi
Mukhang
they want.
nag-review si Kuya Jay in
And
advance
then,
ng ano.
naalala ko yung mga lecture namin dun sa mga kinuha kong certifications. Buti na alala ko. Oh my God. So,
Ako,
ganun.
may quiz. Kuya Jay, may quiz ako.
Naku po, may quiz na naman. Sige,
2020,
ano yun, coach? Ayan, yan.
2020 was the year of the pandemic.
Aha.
So, what happened? No GDP.
Oh, bumaba eh.
Question,
Nag-negative tayo. Yes.
what do you think did our monetary authorities do? Was the trend towards lowering interest rates or was the trend towards increasing interest rates? Ano sa tingin mo yung eksaktong ginawa nila?
Wait, bumaba. So, bumaba yung GDP.
So, mahina yung economy natin
Yeah,
last year
oo.
kasi syempre may pandemic. So, tingin mo anong ginawa ng ating Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas?
Monetary
Para
means it.
masuportahan ang economy.
Yeah. Monetary means ito yung bank rates, right?
Yes.
Different to sa fiscal. Okay. So, fiscal is mainly sa taxes.
Yes.
And okay, so si monetary I would think na binawasan nila yung rate so that people
Yes.
would borrow more, and once
Yes.
people borrow more, they spend more back sa economy.
Yes.
Tama ako? Yun!
Yes.
Arr!
Kasi ganito. Pag binaba yung interest rate and businesses can borrow, consumers can borrow, they can spend. Tapos pag nag-spend sila, Pwede ba nating sabihin, kapag gumastos sila, ibig sabihin, may kumita
Yeah,
dahil
oo,
may pinili sila?
Mhm, mhm.
Dahil may kumita, that's GDP.
Hmm.
So that was exactly what the BSP did. When times are tough, it tries to make the interest rate lower to encourage people to borrow, companies to borrow so that they can spend more and fuel the growth in the economy.
Economy, yes.
So ganun 'yan. Binabalanse ang GDP at in one hand and ang inflation on the other. Pag napansin naman nila na yung demand is a lot greater than the supply, leading to high prices,
High
what they
price,
can do is try to curtail the demand, pataasin nila interest rate para
Hmm.
they will
Bumaba.
not borrow, they will not spend.
Mhm.
Mababawasan yung demand ng konti at babalik ulit sa stable price. So it's that balancing act. Kaya nga Kuya
Ang galing.
Jay, even at that level, nakikita mo trade-offs.
Yeah,
You
oo,
try
may
to balance
trade-off,
if may mga
tama.
trade-offs.
Grabe, oo nga 'no. Hindi
And siguro
puwedeng
thinking as an economist, you really have to be cognizant na lahat ng decision mo
mhm, mhm.
may kapalit.
Yeah.
So hopefully, the decision that you took was the best one, given whatever resources and circumstances you had.
And
That's
it would
economics.
Oo nga, and I think having the right decision is something na you can learn as you grow, 'di ba? Para malaman mo kung ano talaga importante sa'yo, para yung trade-off mo is something na you can live with, yeah. Yung kung maging anything that you do, positive or negative, good or bad, laging may kapalit, eh. And thinking like an economist gave me this idea na it's we, how we live with the consequences regardless of kung ano man naging outcome ng choices natin. Grabe.
Ngayon, may mga recent developments pa.
Mhm.
Traditional economics is all about choice, profit, dapat
Mhm.
masaya si seller, si buyer. I mean, all of those are foundations.
Eto,
But,
sige, mhm.
but may mga
Sige.
developments na rin. Ngayon, when you talk about profit, it's not just financial profit.
Aha,
Ngayon, ang tawag na nila would be your triple bottom line.
okey.
As a company, apart from generating financial profit, what are you doing with respect to the planet? Yung
Oo nga 'no,
operations mo ba ay
social
environmental friendly?
aha,
Pangalawa, people. Kumikita ka, pero yung mga stakeholders, customers mo, empleyado mo, how are they doing? How are you dealing with them? So many companies are now and economics is starting to evolve from your traditional monetary, financial
hindi lang
gain,
sa
high
gano'n.
profit, consumer surplus into something bigger than us.
Yeah,
What
I
about the
see.
planet? What about the people? So
Balance
economics
nga
is
'no?
now leading towards yung if you've heard of the term sustainable development,
Yeah, madalas nga ang word na sustainability and even
parang doon na rin
socio-economic, I
papunta.
also hear socio-economic sa mga usapan
Doon na
ngayon,
rin
eh.
papunta ang economics. Hindi yung
Oh,
dati kasi very heavy on basta kumikita, tama yan. It's the
yeah,
best decision kasi pero ngayon, you don't just think of today. You also think about tomorrow.
tomorrow. And,
And
naalala
may
ko coach 'no?
kasabihan,
Yeah,
if
yeah,
you if you take care of the earth and the people today,
mhm.
they will take care of the economy tomorrow. So that's
Oh,
that's why mas
ganda nun,
napupunta na sa sustainable development ang direksyon.
Galing nun, And wait lang, naalala ko kanina nag-usap tayo backstage 'no, yung talk about kasi maraming investors they think na yung galaw ng economy is dependent din sa galaw ng stock market. So, may sinasabi ka kanina 'no, coach, can you clarify that?
Okay. Ano ang relationship ng stock market ng economy?
Mhm.
In economics, we consider the stock market as a leading indicator. It is
Hmm.
sort of like a crystal ball, meaning
Hmm.
whatever happens to the stock market now can give you a glimpse of what the GDP will be tomorrow.
Hmm.
Investors in the stock market now are already factoring in things that they probably know or anticipating that will happen in, let's say, 2022 and beyond. That's why they're already making the action now. It's
Hmm.
like a crystal ball. It's like your preliminary result before the final result in the form of the GDP. So maganda siyang ang hula kung ano ba yung magiging future GDP. So
Pero
yun
hindi
yung parang link of the stock market and
I
the
see.
economy. It's a leading indicator.
But it doesn't mean that is the state of the current economy.
No, it's more
Yeah.
of what the future economy is.
Gonna
And it's
gonna look like.
reflected in the current stock prices. Again, the stock market is a forward-looking market.
Oo nga. Kasi again, 'di ba ang mga traders sila yung sila may action dun sa ano eh, sila yung nagkakaroon ng actions dun sa stock market eh. Hindi naman yun agad yung reflection ng productivity ng isang company. Right? Hindi yun yung measurement niya.
When the investors and traders act now, they're already acting based on what they know is going to happen in the future.
In the future. Oo, yung sentiment nila, yung market sentiment, yun yung nagpapatakbo ng stock market.
That's why sa
Yun.
economics, tinitingnan na namin ang mga expectations. Anong expectations ng mga tao in the future kasi those expectations affect the decisions that are made today. Meaning, classic case, if you feel that things are not going to improve in the near future, do not invest today.
Oo nga, no.
But if you think that, it's going to improve, then you're going to make action today. Kasi if you don't, huli ka.
Hindi ka makakasakay. Yes.
Yep.
Grabe. Dami natin pag-usapan, Coach. Hindi ko na-expect talaga yung mga...
Economics is this is just giving you the tip of the iceberg. So many topics in economics.
Kakaroon pa tayo ng... I'm sure if you have the time in the future again, yung about a deeper conversation din about economics, like yung macro and microeconomics. Hindi ka na nga tinatackle yung part na yun, And, Coach, ito bang thinking na to, itong pagiging economist, thinker, meron bang bad side ito or is there a downside to that kind of thinking? I think that'll be my last question.
If you're too much on the numbers, you're too much about benefit and cost, you're too much on financial, then that's not good. That's why, again, I go back. You want to be a modern day economist, 2 C's. Number 1, competence.
And
number 2, character. You have to balance both.
Utak at puso ang tamang thinking ng modern day economist. Ayun. Galing mo, Coach. You're the best talaga. Okay. So, Coach, saka ba namin makaka-follow para makita pa nila ang mga ginagawa mo for the community and for our country? Ano bang yung mga social media handles dyan?
So, you can find me in a couple of social media platforms. So, you can see me in LinkedIn. I'm also on FB. I'm also on IG. I'm also in Twitter. And then I also have, when I used to work, I also, like what Coach Kuya Jay mentioned, I was also a former overseas Filipino worker. I was based in the UAE from the years 2013 to 2016. It was at the time that I actually developed my passion for personal finance, economics, and also dealing with our many hardworking and valuable kababayans in the UAE. And naisip ko, nung nandun ako, bumuo kaya ako ng parang community ko. So I've been maintaining a community. It's called Piso Forum. So I've been maintaining that since around the year 2015. So it's 6 years and running. And I'm looking at it. I'm looking at the follower or like count. It's still basically the same. Hopefully, it's still going to grow. So it's something that I'm passionate about.
Yon, yung Piece of Forum, And very active ka sa LinkedIn. Ang dami mong followers doon. And by the way, guys, nagsusulat si Coach sa Business Mirror as well. So, makikita mo ang kanyang mga articles online. Dahil yan din ang binabasa ko. To get me updated sa mga news and idea about personal finance space, of course. Dahil kailangan lagi tayong updated sa mga ganyang bagay. Ayun. So guys, that wraps our episode for today. But before I let you go, I hope
sana hindi kayo na nosebleed.
Oo nga, sana hindi kayo na nosebleed.
Huwag kayong matakot sa economics. Ang economics ginagawa lang na natin araw-araw. Hindi lang natin
napapansin.
Hindi lang natin alam. Pero parcel ng buhay natin.
Exactly. And if you guys want to listen to the past episodes of Pera and Purpose Podcast, you can do that sa Spotify and other podcast streaming platforms. And of course, yung natutunan ninyo dito sa episode na to, or if you're listening to this right now, pwede mo rin mapanood ang aming video conversation ni Coach Gemmy. Just go to my YouTube channel na Hey Kuya J. And if you wanna also schedule a financial coaching session with me, message mo lang ako sa LinkedIn or sa aking Facebook na Purpose Driven Finance. Ayan. Once again, ito ulit si Kuya J, together with Coach Gemmy, telling you to prosper with a purpose. See you sa ating next episode. Maraming salamat ulit, Coach. Ingat ka dyan.
Salamat din.
Bye!